Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a fascinating step back. Specifically to 2008, we've got this really interesting personal account, and it gives some surprising insights into, well, technological foresight, how AI evolved, and maybe the power of just believing in something. Our mission, really, is to unpack what we can learn from this journey, sort of a shortcut to understanding how strong conviction can genuinely shape what's next, even when it seems, completely out there at the time. Okay, let's get into it. So imagine it's 2008. Our source, Aravindhan Krishnan. He was a young grad student back then, and he stumbles upon this crowd in the university lab corridor. What's all the buzz about? Turns out it's the inauguration of a new GPU computing lab. And guess who's cutting the ribbon? Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA. Now you got to remember, NVIDIA in 2008, not the behemoth it is now. And Jensen, definitely not the household name he is today. And to really paint the picture for you, think about this. 2008, that's just 1 year after the very first iPhone came out. GPUs, graphics processing units, they were pretty much stuck in the gaming world, for making graphics look good. And AI, like we think of it today, not even close to the mainstream imagination. It was still very much web browsers, RSS feeds. People were just starting to wrap their heads around smartphones.
That's such a critical point. It really sets the stage for how forward-thinking some of this was. I mean, Jensen Huang being there, this whole idea of a GPU computing lab outside of gaming, that was really niche stuff back then, almost unheard of, actually.
Right. So fast forward to the press conference right after the lab opening. Aravindhan remembers this really clearly. A journalist asks Jensen Huang, the big question, what's computing going to look like 10, 15 years from now?
Yeah.
And Jensen's answer, super crisp. Looking back, incredibly spot on. He says, you will have access to supercomputers in your pockets. Your phone will communicate with supercomputers powered by NVIDIA technology, and this will drastically transform everything we do today.
Wow. And if you unpack that statement from 2008, supercomputers in your pockets, okay, clearly smartphones, right? But communicate with supercomputers, that meant data centers packed with GPUs. That was just such a bold vision when the practical uses for GPUs beyond pretty pictures were still, frankly, pretty unknown. Exactly. Aravindhan mentions that in '08, the hot tech wasn't AI. It wasn't even really mobile apps yet. People genuinely didn't know what else to do with GPUs. NVIDIA was actively pushing their platform to university researchers saying, hey, play with this, see what you can come up with. He even recalls students using them for learning exercises, parallelizing sorting algorithms, basically just making math problems run faster. And the first real academic uses, they were actually in computer vision, things like graph cuts for image analysis. And here's the real kicker. Neural networks were considered totally irrelevant, just not practical.
Which is amazing, isn't it? Neural networks are so central to everything AI today, but back then they were dismissed. And you have to ask why. Was it purely about the tech limits, the compute power, the data sets just weren't there, or maybe not used widely enough? Or was it also a mindset thing? Well, this account suggests it was largely seen as impractical. The sheer computing horsepower and huge data sets needed just didn't seem feasible or available. So the next 4 years, roughly 2008 to 2012, were apparently pretty dormant for these specific technologies. Things were bubbling, but no big breakthrough. And then 2012, something happens that changes, well, pretty much everything. AlexNet.
AlexNet. Yes, that was the moment, the real inflection point. It was the first truly successful implementation of a deep convolutional neural network on a GPU that just blew everyone away in the academic world with its image recognition results. Suddenly, neural networks plus massive data plus, crucially, GPUs. That combination proved to be the engine, and that synergy has driven, most of the computing progress for the last decade plus. Still does, really.
So Arvindhan, looking back on this whole arc, points out a couple of really powerful takeaways. First off, Jensen Huang's absolute conviction, his unwavering belief in this vision of GPUs powering data centers, even when hardly anyone knew how to program them for that stuff. His foresight, his belief, it really laid the foundation for this transformation that almost nobody saw coming. And second, Alex Krizhevsky. He was a grad student then. He had the conviction to actually implement neural networks on GPUs. This was at a time when, remember, most academics were super skeptical about neural nets. They thought it was a dead end. His belief, going against the grain, fundamentally shifted the direction of AI.
And the common thread there is just conviction.
Right.
Conviction in the face of pretty overwhelming skepticism. It makes you realize this isn't just about the technology itself. It's about the human element, the power of belief to push through doubt.
Absolutely. And the source really hammers this point home. The sheer importance of belief itself. Whether you're building something small or aiming for something totally game-changing, believing in yourself is, well, essential. Now, okay, that might sound a bit like a cliche, something we've all heard. But the real question he raises is, how do you get that kind of belief? How do you actually develop it?
He suggests it really stems from having strong fundamentals, a solid grounding in the basics, because that foundation allows for clear reasoning. And that clear reasoning lets you pursue your ideas with this conviction and clarity that other people then see as unwavering belief. It's not magic, it's built on understanding.
Yeah, he points to the undergraduate years as maybe a really good time to start building that foundation, that belief. It's that transition time, isn't it? From teenager to adult, figuring out who you are, what actually matters to you, how you see things. He sort of invites you to use that time to explore, push yourself, see how even small wins build your confidence, your conviction.
Which underlines the importance of really deep learning foundational stuff, not just skimming the surface, you know?
And he also does a pretty crucial warning. Avoid the shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
Be really mindful of how you use technology. He kind of reminds us, look, as engineers, as builders, you're being trained to create technology, not just become overly reliant on it in ways that might, I don't know, dull your own thinking or effort.
That's a really relevant point today, isn't it? With constant information overload, new tools popping up all the time. How do we manage that?
Exactly. He notes that throughout life, you're constantly going to be tempted by the next shiny object, the new distraction. But real growth, as he concludes, comes from knowing when to ignore that noise and just stay laser focused on what actually matters. So what's the big takeaway here for you listening? I think it's that these huge technological shifts, they aren't just about code and silicon. They're really fueled by the audacious belief of individuals, people who see past what's possible right now, combined with a really deep grasp of the fundamentals, and importantly, the discipline to focus when everything else is trying to distract you. As our source, Aravindhan Krishnan, wraps up his thoughts, he offers this really simple, powerful bit of encouragement. Keep learning, keep building, keep believing. And maybe that's something to hold on to. When you look at all the predictions flying around today, some sounding pretty wild, how do you tell what's truly foundational, the next supercomputer in your pocket moment, versus what's just, well, hype? Perhaps it's by developing that same deep belief in the fundamentals, getting that clarity, learning to ignore the noise. Maybe that's how you can spot, or maybe even help shape whatever comes next.